Greetings, my name's Brian James Shanley, and I want to welcome you to this episode number 4 of my video blog, which is entitled Brian James Shanley Raw. Brian James Shanley Raw, for those of you who have never tuned in before, it is that playlist on my YouTube channel that is surgically, specifically set apart to handle lies that ripple through the culture, whether it be in the corporate-owned mainstream media such as ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox. Yes, I said Fox. Things of that nature. If reality is really A, but the media is communicating B, so as to engineer the public's opinion and instruct the public subtly as to what their view should be on a given subject, well, they have to have access to the facts, but that requires somebody to actually say it. How will the people hear without a preacher, as the book of Romans says? Not using it in its immediate context, but you know what I'm saying. So episode number 1 of this show, we dealt with fake news. And I got to tell you something. Whenever I deal with something on this show, it becomes the best thought, the best treatment of that particular subject that you will find on the internet. So in episode 1, when I handled fake news, it is the best handling of fake news that you will see on the internet. Episode number 2, I dealt with Colin Kaepernick, the NFL, the national anthem, and taking a knee. And on the subject of the NFL and Colin Kaepernick and taking a knee in the national anthem, it is the best treatment that you will find on the internet. Episode number 3, I dealt with alternative facts. And on the issue of alternative facts, it is the best handling and the best treatment and the best thought that you will see on the internet. And so today, I know you're at the edge of your seat on pins and needles because I'm going to deal with Kanye West really said slavery was a choice. Because if you have Facebook, if you have social media, you got whatever, you've got a news feed where your friends, and if you're smart, you surround yourself not with people who think and look and act like you and come from the same cultural and social and economic background, but you have a healthy mix so as to be influenced and to benefit from everything. All right, so you've got your radical right-wing religious nutcases over here, which is me. You've got your radical left-wing atheist, communist, lunatic, homosexual perverts over here. You've got your potheads who only care about football and pornography over here. You've got the single mother working to put macaroni and cheese on the table for her 2-year-old over here. You've got the guy who's so wealthy he could go to the Hamptons tomorrow. You've got a mix of people. So your news feed should be full of a bunch of things, not just people who think like you. People will post articles, they will post memes. And if you look beyond your friend who's posting it to who generated that meme, what's the news organization that wrote that article? What's the corporation that owns that news organization that wrote the article? And why are they trying to push the public opinion in that particular direction? In recent memory, you will see many articles that say Kanye West said slavery was a choice. All right? As though Kanye West took a mic and had an interview and he said, you know, in the 1700s or 1600s in West Africa, Abwele Umbuku or whoever left the hut and left the village. He needed to gather some wood for fires, and he needed to gather some fruit, needed to kill a couple of animals and come home for a great dinner. While out and about, he ran into a Spaniard with a bayonet. And the Spaniard said, you know what, I know you've got some stuff going on here in West Africa, but we would like you to get inside of this net. And we would like to drag you over here and put some chains on your wrists and your ankles and your neck and your stomach. And we would like to chain you up to people you've never met before, some people from warring tribes. We'd like to take you all in a caravan to our ship. We'd like to pack you so tightly that most of you are going to get sick, many of you are going to die, and you're not even going to make it to its final destination. Once we arrive at a new world you've never seen before, you're going to be surrounded with people that don't look like you, that don't speak your language, but they've got the power and the money and the guns, and you're going to be essentially a prisoner. They're going to view you as ontologically inferior, just like an animal. They're going to view you as property. They're going to assign a price to you based on your height, your weight, your muscles, your age, your teeth, etc. You're going to be examined like an animal. You're going to be put on the auction block. You're going to be bidded on. If you came here with relatives, you might get separated if different people buy you. We're going to send you over to a piece of land that the one that bought you owns. You're going to be forced, excruciating labor, sun up to sundown, 6 days a week. You're going to be resident labor that lives there and never has the chance to leave. How long is this indentured servanthood? It's forever. You will never be free. Your children will be born into this institution. Your grandchildren will be born into this institution. And if you find a lady over there and marry her, we may sell her to someone else. We may rape her. If you have children, guess what? We may sell them to someone else, and you'll never know them or see them again. And so that's the package we're offering you. It's as though Abuele heard that pitch and said, I've got a lot going on at the village, and I've got some stuff here, and I'm connected to my heritage, language, history, culture, etc. But you know what? That sounds like a hell of an idea. I'm choosing to get on the ship with you, lead the way. It sounds too stupid to be true, but that's what they have Kanye West saying. Or a few generations later, someone born on slavery, never been past the hill that he can see on the horizon. Never seen anything beyond that hill. He's lived on this plantation. Someone came along and said, hey, I know it's not 1863 yet, and I know nothing's happened to make you free, but I'm going to give you a choice. You can stay here and be resident labor, or you can come and be free. And they said, freedom sounds good, but I think I'll stay right here. Again, sounds too stupid to be true, but they have Kanye West saying these things. They have it in memes. They have it in CNN articles. Slavery was a choice. So you got to ask yourself, has Kanye West said stupid things before? Yes, he has. And by the way, am I a fan of his? No, I'm not. As a fan of rap music, in particular, I'm a purist. I've never been his fan. I heard about him in the early 2000s. And people were saying, hey, I know hip-hop is dead. I know we've lost Tupac, we've lost Biggie, and everyone's singing ugly things right now. But there's this new guy out there, Kanye West, and he's going to save it. I heard about him after hype. There was a bunch of hype, and then I heard it. Can you hear me, Mom? You have Jamie Foxx, who's still riding his Oscar from the Ray Charles biopic, singing the hook. And then you've got, I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke brothers. You thought I was going to say it, jerk. When I heard get down, girl, go ahead, get down. I said, if this is the gentleman who's going to be the savior of the rap expression of hip-hop culture, then rap deserves to die because he sucks. So I've never been a fan of the music per se. I'm not here to defend the dude. He said some stupid things that I don't agree with. But just because he has a history of doing things, just like somebody who has a history of speeding tickets, if they're on trial for this speeding ticket and not the history, then let's deal with the one at hand, okay? So did Kanye West, in order to sell albums, say, well, slavery was a choice. Your ancestors chose to be slaves. They had another alternative and they didn't want it. I don't know. That's on you. But the context of all of this, Kanye West was photographed in public wearing a Make America Great Again hat, which, if you know your politics, in late 2016 was the campaign slogan of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. So he had essentially a Donald Trump hat on. And Joe Schmo Public has been instructed that anyone who is pro the message of Donald Trump is a racist, they're a xenophobe, an Islamophobe, a homophobe. They hate everyone not like them. They're evil. They're Adolf Hitler, etc. And so that's what they were looking at. Their mind has literally been trained that way by the television. They can't see it any other way. The public school got to them. And so They said, why is Kanye West wearing this hat? So TMZ calls a meeting with him and has an interview in which he's being basically made to explain the fact that he wore this hat and was photographed in it. That's the context. And so Kanye West is somewhat being ambushed and somewhat being given as, they view him as a legendary singer. I've never seen it. But they're giving him this, out of one side of the mouth they're kissing his butt, out of the other side of the mouth they're trying to slit his throat. And he's trying to hold his own, and you can sense that he's going through a transitional period in his worldview right now in front of our face. And I'm going to let this play for itself. I don't want to bias you, but you need to ask yourself as you're listening, did he say that my great-great-great-great-granddaddy chose to be a slave? That he had the option to be something else and said, no, I'd rather be a slave? If he did not say that, then every meme and every link that's in your news feed from every jackass on Facebook who's forwarding this is wrong. And it's deliberately lying to you. Once you establish that it's wrong, then the next question becomes why? What did the lie mean? And if too many people know the truth, who's going to be hurt by that? Let's at least play the clip, all right? And again, this was a long interview, but the clip that is relevant to the controversy today, you got to understand, Joe Schmo on your news feed has never heard this. They simply see the meme and they say, I can't believe you said that. How do you know he said that? Did you hear him? No. How do you know he said that? Because I got a meme. How do you know the meme is true? Because I got this link to this article. That's some brilliant shit. Wow. So we're dealing with a generation of people who are educationally challenged, and let's deal with some actual facts and evidence, all right? This might be your first time being exposed to it, but that's why you're a fan of this show. So smoke them if you got them. Let's hear this. Woo!
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all? You know, like, it's like we're mentally in prison. I like the word prison because slavery goes too direct to the idea of blacks. It's like slavery, Holocaust Jews, slavery is blacks. So prison is something that unites us as one race, blacks and whites being one race. That we're the human race. We're human beings and stuff. And eventually, you know.
Can I go back to something you just said? Because I don't want to let it pass. You said that slavery was around for 400 years. At a point, it becomes a choice.
Yeah, right now we're choosing to be enslaved. We're like, okay, so Ebro, I FaceTime and I'm there with Candace, right? And Ebro starts bringing up his version of facts, right? And Candace has facts. She's researched, right? Candace Owens has facts. She's researched. And then Candace just pulls out her Jedi lightsaber and just, chops Ebro's head off with facts. Then Ebro FaceTimes me the next day, and he's talking about the scoop, poop. He wants to talk about music now. I said, yo, you gonna have Candace on your show? He's like, no, I'm not. She's mean. So you're gonna stifle her voice, Ebro. You're choosing to enslave people's minds. You're choosing to not let the truth be free.
Can I give you my translation of what happened last week and tell me if it's right?
Okay.
The way I see it, you don't necessarily embrace the views of Donald Trump as much as you want to show people that they shouldn't be intimidated from showing their true feelings, expressing themselves freely, and that the hat is a lightning rod for this kind of free thought that is lost in our society because people get bullied and shouted down and they're intimidated to the point where they have to shut up. Is that fair?
It's the mob. The mob tries to tell you what to think. The mob tries to make all blacks be Democrats for food stamps and stuff. It's the mob. And by the way, you're just talking to the emotion. When you get Candace, ask her, she's going to drop you the facts.
We're going to get Candace on in a bit.
The kid, if you ask a kid that stood in Tiananmen Square in front of the tank why he did it, he might not be able to explain that. But you can't diminish that moment if I can't give you the direct explanation.
All right. Woo! Are you dizzy? All right, so you've officially now been furnished with more truth than the average schmo who's forwarding these memes. Kanye West said that slavery was a choice. But did he say that? It's a shame I even have to do this. But for the betterment of people who have been suckered in, I'm going to go ahead and do it. First of all, Kanye West, in response to why he chose to wear a hat, because you literally have to explain yourself for wearing whatever hat you feel like in the 21st century America. It says, when you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like you were there for 400 years, and it's all y'all. So when you hear about a 400-year institution, and you continue to hear about it for hundreds of years or whatever, and particularly an institution about which the generation talking about it was not a part of it, and that is what defines and sets the tone and becomes the content of your conversations at work, at the barbershop, at the beauty salon, at the local Church of God in Christ, or whatever. The fact that that is what defines us as a people in our conversations, that sounds like a choice. Did he say the slavery was a choice, or did he say keeping it alive as the talking point in our conversations is the choice? I'm reminded of Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, where he's screaming and he says, "English, motherfucker, do you speak it?" I've got to ask many people, because Kanye West is speaking English, and do they? So he goes on, it's like, and you can rewind your brains out, it's like we're mentally in prison. First of all, we are, that means present tense. That means the slave trade, which is past tense, is not in view, okay? But we're mentally in prison. So he's not talking about physical bondage. He's not talking about chains. Slavery can take many forms. It can be political, economic, social, mental, whatever. All manner of different, intellectual, He says we're mentally in prison. And then he goes on to say, and this is kind of brilliant. I may have misjudged him. He may be a genius in some ways, because he says, I like the word prison because slavery goes too directly to the idea of blacks. It's like slavery, Holocaust. Holocaust is Jews, slavery is blacks. So he's saying, look, when people hear the word slavery, they think only black people, in the same way that when they hear Holocaust, they only think of Jews. So I'm changing the terminology because the current racial conversations in America have so monopolized the definition of the word slavery that they wouldn't understand the context in which I'm using it, so I'd like to change it. He who controls the terminology of the discussion and frames it wins the debate. Okay? He's doing that. It's brilliant. I know when I'm teaching in Bible, and I'm teaching Philemon, and it's about Paul writing to a slave master about a slave, writing to Philemon about a slave, Onesimus, immediately the first thing I have to say when I'm teaching is, everyone in the pews right now, get Uncle Tom's Cabin out of your head. Don't let an institution that took place in America in the 15, 16, 1700s, 1800s define how you see a first century Middle Eastern piece of literature, or it's going to result in disaster. And you see it in the Hebrew. There's Israelites, the black Israelites, the Nation of Islam. They take the word slavery as a 21st and 20th century speaker would define it, and they force it onto ancient literature from another continent. They find things in it that the original author never intended, and thus you have doctrinal belief and, in the end, practical problems out of these groups of people, because they don't know what they're looking at and they refuse to understand the terminology. And I hope this makes sense. But the fact that Kanye sees this means he's got a higher than the normal IQ. Okay, we're dealing with an intelligent man. Okay? So he says, prison. So prison is something that unites us as one race. Blacks and whites being one race. That we're one. We're the human race. We're human beings and stuff. And eventually, this is where the TMZ guy cuts him off, but he says, Look, prison is more of a broad catch-all term. If I said slavery, you think I'm only referring to blacks because the television and the government-run school has instructed you that slavery equals black and black equals slavery. So forget about the word slavery. I'm using prison because I'm referring to black, white, red, yellow, and blue people. I always tell everyone in every video, Google blue people from Kentucky. One day you're going to hear me say it one too many times. You're going to be like, screw it. I'm going to Google blue people from Kentucky. It's a hell of a study. Anyways, he's saying without regard to external appearance or who you descend from, you're in a prison and don't even know it. But again, the context, he said mentally. We are, present tense, mentally in prison, which doesn't mean your ancestor who was in physical chains chose to be that. You couldn't see that unless you had an extreme learning disability or you had an agenda. You're either stupid and can't understand what he's saying, or you can understand what he's saying, but you're willing to lie about it because you want people to believe the lie. Which one are we dealing with? Both are scary for different reasons. So TMZ interrupts him, and I can't speak to the motive of the TMZ guy. Either A, he hears Kanye West hear the word slavery, and he's like, this is my friend, he could be misunderstood, I've got to step in and help him. I'm going to lob a nice sinker right over, or lob a nice fastball right over home plate so he can knock it out of the park and explain it so thoroughly that even the dumbest person in my audience couldn't miss it. He's either trying to help Kanye, or it's an ambush where the beginning of the misunderstanding, he hears the word slave and immediately, like Pavlov's drooling dog, he's already on the attack. I can't tell which one it is, but the TMZ guy interrupts him here. He says, can I go back to something you just said? Because I don't want to let it pass. You said that slavery was around for 400 years. At a point, it becomes a choice. So, and you can see the guy's, there's confusion in his question, but you have the right to be confused and ask the question. That's why you ask questions. So I don't fault him for it. I just don't know what was going on in here, and I can't really judge that because only God can judge heart, attitudes, and motives. I can judge content, though, and I will, with a righteous judgment as Matthew 7 commands. But anyways, so Kanye responds to that question, yeah, right now we're choosing to be enslaved. We're like, okay, so Ebro, I FaceTime him, and I'm there with Candace, right? And Ebro starts bringing up his version of facts, right? And Candace has facts. She's researched, right? Candace Owens has facts. She's researched. And then Candace pulls out her Jedi lightsaber and just, chops Ebro's head off with facts. And Kanye even gives us a little lightsaber sound effect. But what he's saying is, look, we're choosing to mentally enslave everybody. And he's giving us a historical account of something that's happened recently. There's a female black American thinker by the name of Candace Owens, and she's a conservative, which means, and she was born in 1989, so she's young. It means that Jesse Jackson and Louis Farrakhan couldn't get to her and make her part of the groupthink of the community. She has mainstreamed, so to speak, in that she has, become classic American, but she has left the mainstream of the black community in that she has adopted opinions that are different than you would hear the local civil rights leader with the bow tie and the megaphone spitting out to the community. So she's on a different side of things, but that is a school of thought that exists within black thought right now. And so obviously Kanye West wants to give a bigger audience to this Candace Owens to expose the black community to more than one school of thought. And why not do it then better than on Ebro Darden's little East Coast talk show? And whenever I hear Darden, I think of Christopher Darden, who made O.J. Simpson put on the gloves. But we're dealing with Ebro Darden from the East Coast. He's got a radio talk show, talks about music, etc. And Kanye's like, this girl would give your audience a little bit of diversity in terms of thought, so they won't get the same old, we gotta mobilize the community talking points, but she'll actually have some stuff from history, from science, etc., that she can bring to the table and give people something to chew on that they don't normally get to hear. Okay? And so he had a FaceTime conversation with this Ebro character, and Candace was there, and Candace and Ebro were tangling a little bit, going back and forth, and apparently from Kanye's vantage point, Candace won that discussion with Ebro, okay? He says, then Ebro FaceTimes me the next day, and he's talking about the scoop, and poop. What the hell is that? One of the reasons I'm not really looking up to Kanye West as a lyricist, he's got a song out called Lift Yourself, and it's scoop and poop, scoop and poop. It reminds me of cleaning up dog shit in the backyard. I don't understand how cleaning up dog crap in the backyard has to do with lifting yourself, but whatever. So he wants to talk about music now, and I said, yo, you gonna have Candace on your show? He's going back to, he viewed that FaceTime between Candace and Ebro as an audition to get Candace on Ebro's show. He's like, no, I'm not. She's mean. How many times have you been in a discussion with someone who believes in a worldview that's been handed to them from the mouths of their favorite Hollywood characters or their favorite cartoons, their favorite Disney characters? And it's the Green Movement. It's a one-world multiculturalist, socialist, we are the world, whatever gay agenda thing. And then you bring up facts and statistics and even Western thought and philosophy, and you rip them to shreds, and rather than conforming their position to the evidence, they've got some kind of emotional problem with you and they call you mean. Well, you're not the only one, because Ebro just apparently called Candace mean because he lost the debate. So rather than discuss the issues at hand, Ebro was discussing the girl. She's mean, as though that has any logical relationship to whether or not she was right. So Kanye says, so you're going to stifle her voice, Ebro. You're choosing to enslave people's minds. You're choosing not to let the truth be free. Again, enslaving minds. Mental slavery has to do with censoring, limiting the choices available to your listening audience on your show. Ebro Darden has this platform, which I guess apparently a lot of people listen to. And Kanye's like, look, you have the potential to give them another side, another take, and you're literally deliberately keeping it from the community. You're hurting people. You're contributing to the mental enslavement right now that's taking place. All right? If you fail to grasp this, I can't help you. All right? But he's not talking about the transatlantic slave trade at all. And again, you have to be stupid to see it that way. Okay? So another TMZ guy gets in and he says, can I give you my translation of what happened last week and you tell me if it's right? And again, he's talking about the fact that Kanye West had the nerve to wear a Donald Trump hat. The way I see it, you don't necessarily embrace the views of Donald Trump as much as you want to show people that they shouldn't be intimidated from showing their true feelings, expressing themselves freely, and that the hat is a lightning rod for this kind of free thought that is lost in our society because people get bullied and shouted down, and they're intimidated to the point that they have to shut up. Is that fair? So this guy is coming to Kanye's aid so that nobody could misunderstand what the ultimate message Kanye was saying. He's basically saying, look, Kanye, you're wearing the hat of someone you don't necessarily hold to his views, but the fact that you're wearing it is a symbol of, hey, let's have the freedom to exchange ideas in an open marketplace of worldviews and not be afraid to hold to an anti-establishment view, to stand on your own over and against the community, as though you elected Louis Farrakhan, as though you elected Jesse Jackson to be your spokesman and to create your worldview for you. Anyone who deviates from it is obviously an Uncle Tom. He's a sellout, he's a house Negro, whatever. They've got 50 names to call you to keep you right back inside of the boundaries. And Kanye's, this guy's interpreting Kanye as saying, you must want us to break free from that fear. Okay? And Kanye agrees, and he says, it's the mob, as in the 51% ballot, argumentum ad populum. Something is made true or untrue based on how many people believe it. So if I got 51% of the people in your neighborhood to believe the grass is blue, does the fact that 51% of the people adopted that position change the color of the grass? No. The grass is still green. It's just that you now have a majority of the population who believes in a lie. So Kanye is saying the majority can believe in a lie. The mob tries to tell you what to think. Everyone in your community tries to tell you what your opinion should and should not be. The mob tries to make all blacks be Democrats for food stamps and stuff, and expounding on Lyndon Baines Johnson and him saying, I'm going to make these blankety blank blank blanks vote Democrat for the next 200 years. The whole history behind the Great Society, great giveaways that were signed into legislation in the war on poverty, and what its real intentions were. That conversation is outside of the scope of me dealing with Kanye West, but he's on to something, even if he's sloppy in how he's saying it, okay? Like, by the way, you're just talking to the emotion. You know, when you get to Candace, ask her. She's going to drop you the facts. He's saying, look, I've just converted to this worldview. I'm still trying to understand it, and I'm more emotional about it. I haven't fully educated myself in the best way to put it into words and every fact that will back up my position. But I'd like to introduce you to Candace Owens, who has the facts. And it reminded me of my personal life. I became a Christian in 1998. I immediately felt this sense of, I've just adopted this new worldview that has given me this new lease on life. I can't wait to tell people about it. The bad news was I wasn't trained in the finer points of my worldview, and I wasn't trained on how to tactfully and properly articulate it, and I wasn't yet trained on how to refute objections to it and distortions of it, and thus going out to do something that you're not fully trained in yet. I would say that the first almost decade of my Christian experience, most of my conversations about Christianity were damn near worthless. He's humble and he's admitting, I don't yet have the tools necessary to communicate what I'm saying, but it's there. And again, it reminds me of Laura Ingram's book, Shut Up and Sing. Okay? We don't look at an entertainer and expect them to flow on the social and political and economic issues of our time period because they're an entertainer, and being a social and political commentators outside of their area of expertise and outside of their niche. So he's at least admitting, this is outside of my niche. I'm a singer. That's what he's saying. And I can't properly put this into words. Okay? And then he goes on, if you ask a kid that stood in Tiananmen Square in front of the tank why he did it, he might not be able to explain that. But you can't diminish that moment if I can't give the direct explanation. And you see the fact that he was on TMZ talking about China running over children in the streets of Tiananmen Square in 1989 with tanks. You can hear the hustle behind him to shut him up pretty quick, because how much of Hollywood does China own right now? The American studios and the filmmakers, when their movie has an American run and it grosses blah blah blah, they want it to be released in China. So they always do a little pandering. You can see the little propaganda in a lot of the American movies now, where they give China quite the plug. In exchange, they hope to do major box office success at China. But TMZ, who's Hollywood, oh, we were hearing about tanks running people over. We can't let Joe Schmo public know that happened yet. You know? And so the fact that he said that was a little bonus treat that I got a kick out of. But he says, look, someone makes a passionate stand and they're willing to take punishment for it, like being run over by a tank or what have you, even though they can't articulate the why in the most satisfactory way possible, you can't eliminate the fact that they took the stand. The fact that they took the stand is still righteous, even if they can't get technical. So he's being humble here. And of course, this interview goes on to be longer and it becomes a rant. But as you can see plainly, Kanye West, what's happening right now, and I can say this as a Bible teacher, theologian in historically black denominations in America in the 21st century. Right now there's a renaissance taking place There's an underground. See, people look at the black community and they think there's only one position on welfare, one position on this, one position on that. And it's a group think mentality. And the fact that there's multiple and diverse worldviews within the black community is something that a lot of people don't understand yet. And right now, what we are seeing is the resurgence of the old W.E.B. Du Bois versus Booker T. Washington debate. Different stage, same stage, but different actors. You see, the date on the calendar is different, the players are different, but the worldviews are still clashing, as though it says 2018 on the calendar. It might as well say 1918 on the calendar, because that same beef is still there. Marcus Garvey came along and said, look, you guys, the black Americans, you guys contributed to the prosperity and the building and the foundation of this country. You have a place at the table. Thank you, Marcus Garvey, for telling us that. Then the next generation says, okay, we have a place at the table, and it's not being recognized. How do we take our seat at the table? By what means? By what method? That's when the beef began. W.E.B. Du Bois said we have to participate in a revolution that overthrows existing social, economic, and political conditions, and hopefully when the smoke clears in the new order, the black folks will be cut some kind of break. Booker T. Washington said, through education, hard work, self-sacrifice, belief in God, tight families, we will come up on our own, individually and also as a community, and we'll become a power to be reckoned with. And so you see that fight to this day. Should we protest on the street, or should we go into the corporate, business world and take it through our skills and expertise? Which one? And that's a fight that's happening right now. But Kanye West is in an interesting awakening where he's starting to see, hey, there's a lot going on here, and this is a deeper subject than a lot of people know, and both sides need to be told. And right now, only one side is being invited. So this has went on a little longer than I wanted it to, and I thank you for your patience. But when you see the meme that Kanye West said, slavery is a choice. Slavery was a choice. Your great-great-granddaddy wanted to get on that ship. Your great-great-granddaddy wanted to stay and get beaten on that plantation. When they put those words in front of his mouth, they are lying to you. All right? So why are they lying? Only God knows. But it's important to them that your opinion is something. But the facts, as the Messiah said, the truth shall set you free. You are now free intellectually and mentally from the memes and the articles that you're being bombarded with on your Facebook and your news feed, which say Kanye West said slavery was a choice. All right, that's not what he said at all. And again, I'm not his fan. I don't have any stake in defending him. This is something hot right now, and it needed to be dealt with. All right, there is an entire group called Blacks for Trump. There's an entire group called the Black Tea Party. Conservatism, keeping big government off of our back, is breaking out in the American black community. Being awake to what the corporate-owned secular news media is doing to the community, that awakening is happening in the black community. And Kanye is at the forefront, which it's the first real political activist rap that I've seen since Tupac. And it has the potential to really, really alter minds and opinions and wake people up. And so on that basis, if he can, this could become exciting for him. I want to, before I go, ask you with all due respect, Brian James Shanley Raw on Facebook, if you would like it, if you would follow it. The Brian James Shanley YouTube channel is full of not just Brian James Shanley Raw, but my radio show Ground Zero, my Sovereign Grace Institute of Apologetics, and a whole bunch of other